You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Teen Wolf After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Teen Wolf After Show.
Hello, AfterBuzzers. Bing is for doing, and we're here doing another AfterBuzz TV After Show for MTV's Teen Wolf, Season 3, Episode 10, The Overlooked. I'm your host, Kristen Elizabeth Snyder. Sitting next to me this evening, Assistant Editor on Teen Wolf, Corey Trench.
Good to be here.
Across the table, AfterBuzz TV host Sara Stretton.
Hi, guys.
Our special guest this evening has served as production designer on films such as Very Harold and Kumar Christmas, Pink Panther 2, Accepted, Elf, Austin Powers, Meet the Parents, Won't Back Down, and is currently the production designer on MTV's Teen Wolf. Please welcome Rusty Smith.
Yeah.
Hi there.
Yay!
Hey, how are you, Rusty? Hey.
Good to have you on.
You also might recognize Rusty. He played Mr. Westover, the history teacher, last episode.
Yes, Mr.
Very sad.
Westover,
yes.
yeah.
How was that? Have you acted as well as working on the production
that's
before?
kind of how I got started in this whole crazy thing in high school, and I wanted to be an actor. But I had a teacher in college who said, "You're the first student I've ever had who could be a designer, but I cannot tell you that about your acting."
Oh, well, hopefully they saw last week's episode because I thought you did an amazing job.
No, but I got no lines. I got no lines. I got a piece of chalk, though.
You know what? We didn't see him necessarily die. You could be back.
Oh,
He's like, "Please,
there's a
please."
secret brewing.
Well, just on that topic, what was that like? Did Jeff go to you and ask you if you wanted to be in the show? How did that all come about?
He did. We were having a production meeting, and he basically said, we need somebody to be the history teacher, and, Rusty looks like he could be a history teacher. And I said, I don't have time. I can't do that. And then the script came out. And when I got the script, and I read the history teacher part, and I saw kind of what it was and dramatically how it sort of played out, I was like, oh, I have to do that. I said,
Nice.
I'm in. Yeah.
I can't believe at first you didn't want to, considering that was like your first dream.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
He's a busy man.
Yeah, it's the Teen Wolf schedule, at least for us, because we have to stay ahead, is it's hectic. Mm-hmm. And it's my first venture into episodic because I mostly do features, but it's been a lot of fun.
How is it different from, working in TV and episodic rather than doing a feature production?
Well, the feature is it's more contained. You sort of you get it and you know sort of what it is you have to do from start to finish, and this is it's evolutionary. This we sort of get let in on what the arc is or something like that, and sometimes it comes like down the hall, like the producer Joe Janier will say, "We're gonna need a root cellar," and I'm like, root cellar. What does that mean? But then, it like keys off something in your imagination, and you start seeing shapes and images, and you sort of think, oh, and then you sort of get clues. And I sort of think that is partially Jeff trying to figure that out. Mm-hmm. But then, maybe I don't need the whole picture. Maybe I am part of the evolutionary process, and that just makes it extremely exciting. It's
yeah,
really
absolutely.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm sure when you read books, you just have this amazing imagery going on in your head, considering you're a production designer.
Just nodding.
Books, yeah.
And speaking of your process, and just maybe for the people watching, production design is such a specific thing. Would you mind just talking through exactly how you add to the show and how you contribute?
Well, I would just say, sort of what I feel like my job is I'm the visual look or the sort of theme of the show, you know, and also the architecture, and it has to do with color, it has to do with environment, it has to do with mood, it has to do with like almost sort of everything that you see in the show, and that could, you know, that covers everything from like you know, architecture to props to set decoration, you know, all of those things sort of, even to visual effects and to like you know, the design of the building that's not built yet, you know, all of those things are representative of the visual, you know, language of the show or a film, and that's kind of my job. So when you read a script, yes, it's true. It's like anybody, you know, when anybody reads a book, you know, you get images in your head and you see things, and, you know, my job is to make dreams into reality.
Very cool.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, because Teen Wolf looks fantastic. So thank you for all those beautiful visuals. And of course, we're going to have an
Beautiful,
interview.
but kind of scary. I must say.
Very
I
terrifying.
want to make it more scary, you know. Director we had, Rob Hall, coined a phrase, and he called it rusty sauce. And yeah, more blood. More sauce.
Russell
He's one of
said,
the blood people.
yeah, Russell says he walks around with like buckets of blood and just dumps blood on everything. Okay.
Russell has been awesome. And Russell's also another great sort of find for me. My name is Russell. His name is Russell. We've sort of, and actually on the show, you know, my credit for the first time in my career is Russell Smith. And I'm kind of not quite sure how that happened, and I'm pretty sure it's because they mixed up our names, you know.
Wow,
and people on set call him Rusty.
Oh, that's funny.
Because he's got red hair. I don't have red hair, but I've always been called Rusty. And then he turns around, and he answers to it and everything. But
Now it's all just getting confusing, right? No.
Well, let's go ahead and get down to the episode. And we start off the overlooked episode with the hospital evacuation. And there's flooding and a power outage throughout the town. And it's just, there's a lot of hectic chaos going on. And I kind of feel like Jennifer was probably responsible for the storm, because she's sort of been responsible for everything hectic that's been going on in the town with the animals. Do you think Sarah
I
she was
mean, they
responsible?
mentioned in this episode that even through this hospital event, these are all still her putting her pieces in their places. I don't know if I would go so far as to think she's responsible with the storm. I think we've seen her control over elements like insects and animals and all of that. But I want it. It would be interesting if that was another aspect of her powers, because I don't think we've learned everything that she has. She can do. Like today, when we saw her use her like eyes turned to basically like cloudy or something as she like blasted the elevator. Like that was brand new. So I'm kind of wondering what else she can do.
And she didn't even have to fully turn to do that either. So who knows? She's kind of playing that, oh, I'm sweet and vulnerable and I'm overlooked and it's not me. And then she's kind of like, okay, now I'm the Duroc.
She's like,
I love that moment. You know, it's funny. I happened to be, because I don't get to be on set very much, and I saw Russell directing her, Haley, in that moment. And she's such a terrific actress. You know, she was just, it was the wildest thing. You know, she created that whole thing and then did this move. And even as you're watching it in the monitors, it was very powerful. And there was no digital effect or anything. It was just her creating this
see
thing. It's like,
already.
well, what is that? Well, you know, just push her down the hall.
Wow.
imagine with your mind.
So we finally get Jennifer Blake being the Duroc in front of Derek, because I think a lot of fans were also in Derek's position of not wanting to believe that this sweet teacher was actually, you know, this dark druid. So we get Stiles and Scott actually throwing the mistletoe at her so that he can kind of see her real face in front of him. And he doesn't really handle it well.
Oh, I thought he for being discovered as like this murderer.
Yeah.
I thought he handled it quite well. Like,
Well, he tries to
was
kill
doing-
her.
Well, in a choking position, yeah. That's how I would handle that situation.
But he
Handled very well. Just kill him.
He didn't go through with it. It was more of the silent treatment then from the rest of the episode.
But Sarah brings up a good point, which is, you know, he kisses her. Like she, you know, actually she goes in for the kiss early on and he receives the kiss. So knowing that he already knows what, you know, since Scott and Stiles told him, Derek, before, you know, Jennifer comes in. So, you know, maybe he's got this love-hate relationship, maybe. I don't know.
It's
You know,
causing some
between
serious trust issues.
Yeah.
That's what I would give it. Some serious trust issues. And, like, that's how she starts her conversation with him, is that, like, he needs to trust her through everything. And she calls him out for telling him that they have these deeper connections that he's going to have to learn. And so we're just seeing that grow. And, like, I don't think we've seen his full coming to terms of her being the Duroc yet.
I liked how
I was floored. I was floored, by the way. I was very upset when I found out she was the bad guy.
No way, because she told us last week that, like, none of the cast and crew knew it was her, so you didn't have any idea.
Who'd you think it was?
Well, actually, I confess, I didn't think it was her at all, but I kind of, one of our producers let it slip. We were having like a little meeting. We were talking about like a future design element, the Nemeton. Has the Nemeton come
Yes,
up?
The
it was
Nemeton,
the last.
Nemeton?
It was like the
That's it.
last word of that. One of the last words in this
Of
episode.
this episode, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it was? So we haven't seen what the Nemeton is?
Yeah, we kind of saw the
We-
bottom of it. It's basically what we saw the root cellar.
You saw the root and then the top of it.
I just assumed that was all the Nemeton, like underneath the stump where like Derek earlier in his life killed Paige, who is not Jennifer, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we can talk about that because he killed Paige there. He didn't realize it, but he was sacrificing a Nemeton, or sacrificing a virgin to the Nemeton, and the blood gave life to the Nemeton again, which when we actually found out that Jennifer used to be Julia, and Bakari or something like that,
Yep,
and
Julia
and we're just gonna call her
I
Jennifer.
was like, or we could just call her
To
Jay.
keep-
Jay to keep the consistency going.
JB.
JB.
Yeah, so she actually was Kali's emissary, and Deucalion had ordered Kali to kill off all her pack and also her emissary, and she almost killed everyone, but she just kind of left her to die peacefully. But she crawled to the Nemeton, which still had that sacrificial blood and
And it gave her strength.
spark of life that kept her alive.
And I thought that was an interesting part for Kali's like character's perspective, because I've been kind of waiting for Kali to die. Like, she's been in these huge fights, and I'm like, she keeps living, and there was a reason that she was kind of succeeding this whole time, and it's because of the interconnectedness that she possesses, like the fact that she entered the Alpha Pack because of Ennis, and it was her emissary, and like, I just think that that's cool how they supported her character with all these other like past histories.
See, this is what my son was trying to explain to me last night. And I was like, what? How did I miss that? And he was like trying to tell me why she didn't kill her completely, because she had sort of empathy or was like trying to let her die peacefully. And I was like, well, how did I miss that? And so, yeah, but I love Kali. So it's,
And her barefootedness. Ugh, cringe. I cringe.
For anyone with a foot fetish, she's probably not one of their favorites. She's always in her bare feet. But this is interesting because Jennifer could team up with Scott and Derek because they both want to go against Deucalion and fight him off, except for she's kind of targeting their loved ones. So that kind of gets in the way. Otherwise, they could join.
Like, this episode, I think that was hinted at even earlier when you see her say that she's going to help them as they're in the hospital, and she's like, you don't need to like keep this leash on me or whatever. But the first moment she has to help, she backs off in the elevator, and it's only when she thinks there's no other option for her that she goes back to Derek and asks for help. So like, for me, that planted a seed of doubt of how much she cares about them or cares about their goals, and I think that foreshadowed why she was willing to keep Stiles' father and then proceed to take Scott's father as well. It's because
Scott's mother.
Yes, thank you. But those seeds of like doubt were already planted because she's still, as much as she opened up and gave them information, you can still tell she's not being completely honest throughout the episode. Just because like the little actions she does to keep herself safe and not really to help everyone else.
I mean, do you, after getting her backstory, though, do you feel for her? Are you a bit more understanding about why she's done all this?
I mean,
I feel like, okay, now I get it, because after I got Deucalion's backstory, I was kind of like, okay, I understand why he's on this path of vengeance and why, it became an addiction to kill his pack, and, he's angry because he can't see, and it all made sense because before that he was very peaceful. And I feel like she was probably very peaceful before Kali tried to kill her.
No, these are peaceful werewolves. You're talking about. Just saying.
Obviously,
unquote.
There's no accidental killings in this. No. I mean, on the question of whether or not I sympathize or empathize or whatever with her, I do on some level why, like, she made this oath to go against the Alpha Pack. On that, I understand. I understand her, like, wanting to rise up, but I don't see how that prohibits her from teaming up and being a good friend to everyone else who's innocent in, like, what's befallen her.
Right.
So the fact that she took, like, Stiles and Scott's parents, that to me is a big line. And if she really wanted to help, and if it was really coming from, like, a good place of just making sure the alphas don't get too much power or ever hurt anyone ever again, then she wouldn't need to hurt more people. And she says, like, sacrifice for the greater good, but...
The good of what? And what do you think that means?
The greater good.
I was wondering about that. But the greater good of Beacon Hills? It's interesting because when she says that line, like, you just don't understand, you just don't get it. And I'm like, why? No. I'm like, when does... And I think that sort of any heroes, perhaps, are trying to rescue someone, like, from a situation like that, you can't question the greater good. You have to question sort of what's right in front of you. So they have to go get their parents.
See?
You have to stop her.
And if you take that position, then you can't really empathize with her. But, like, what is the greater good is a bigger question, and one that I don't think that the show's answered yet, but has proposed most of the time. And I think the biggest direction we've gotten for what is good is Scott. And I think that while we haven't received any answers about what they're fighting for besides their families, is Scott's, like, morals. And so on that line, she's, like, crossed it, and she's not being a good person.
No, that's a great point, guys. I think that Scott and the rest of the good pack, I think that they are kind of blinded by having emotional involvement and attachment to the people who are getting killed. I mean, it goes back to what Cora said to Stiles. You guys are just finding the bodies. You're not really preventing anything. They're not preventing anything because they've been so concerned about protecting the people who they care about the most. But, I mean, what else are we supposed to do in this world, right?
You also have to be a little, one of the things I love, at least, about the writing and about Jeff's kind of structure is there's a degree of randomness to it, too. Like, if you either, whatever you believe in, sort of fate or, religion or whatever your destiny or journey is, there's always something that sort of, interrupts, like a train wreck or something, and that sort of causes a different sort of avenue. And I think that's sort of what you see in evidence is a lot of that, That thing wasn't supposed to happen, but then, then Scott just happens to get, bitten by Peter. All this chain of events, goes into play. And I think that makes the story really more exciting because it has a honest sort of randomness,
Yeah.
Well, I also think what's interesting, just on the aspect of the randomness too, it's also like what's been planned and what's the setting kind of dictates. For example, the Nemeton. I know you were saying earlier when Jeff says make a root cellar, I'm sure he has a vision of his head and what the root cellar should be, but then you probably have to, add your own vision to it as well, and how the setting of that sort of dictates the story. So maybe it seems less random and more purposeful. So what kind of went into that, the style of the Nemeton and making that reality?
What I love more than anything about what I do is process. It is that discovery process. Somebody says something to you, or you read a script and you sort of get an idea in your head, or you see an image, and then probably, I like to do research. So you start researching root cellars, and you find out it's a really interesting thing, and it's a very East Coast thing, and what was it about? And so the image I had in my head was, of course, about roots. But what a root cellar really is where you would store stuff. It was like a pickling place. It was like where I grew up in the South, it was like a smokehouse. And it happened to be underground. It had to be kept cool. But the moral of our story is that a root invades the root cellar, so it had sort of a double meaning to it. And I think I sort of instinctively clued into that right away, even before I knew it had anything to do with a big, giant, enormous tree. And then that became part of it too, is like, what is this tree? And then we started researching the coolest, biggest, giant trees. And our inspiration was actually, there's a tree on St. John's Island, I think in South Carolina. And that is what our tree, in our, at least in my imagination, was. And it's one of the biggest live oak trees in the world. It's like 85 feet or something, like its branch spread.
Wow.
And you should look it up. It's really cool.
Sounds
Big
neat.
tree.
The real Nemeton.
The real Nemeton.
Yeah, right.
We should take a journey, go out there.
exists.
See.
AfterBuzz next week, South Carolina. So, some people were saying on YouTube that they enjoy our show a lot, but we don't talk about the fact that the Jennifer romance was really rushed. And I feel like because we get this backstory where it was kind of Paige's blood that sort of resurrected Jennifer, I feel like that's the connection. They have this natural love for each other that kind of came from a first love, the virgin
I think
kill.
it's like on at least Julia Jennifer's perspective, there's also a sense of owing. Like she, in a way, owes her life indirectly to Derek's actions. So I think it also comes down to that and like a thankfulness and a gratitude. I think that why it was not easy for Derek to be in that relationship, but why we saw him kind of jump into it, because it was the first person like he was allowed to be vulnerable with. For him, like after being so cold towards people and women for so long, like I understand why he fell so fast for her, because he protected her. And that, obviously, he protected her in the beginning, too. So I think that's the foundation of their relationship. And it'll be interesting to see now if it's her turn to protect him as, like, the Rock from the Alphas or whatnot.
Good point.
They obviously both have their problems with the Alphas.
So Minutes of Love, I mean, so I have to agree that I hadn't thought about it so much, but that there should have been more. If she was really in love with him, I would think there would have been a little bit more time for that. Maybe she's really always just been using him.
You don't think that, like, but there's, like, that she's known for years. Well, I don't know how she found out, actually, that it was Derek who helped her do this, but I'm assuming she's known this. And so I think that it's more of just she had to find a way into his life.
Right.
After all this time.
She was resurrected with this knowledge.
Does she say that in the elevator? Does she say that? Does she explain that in this episode?
Yeah,
She explains a lot of it, yeah.
She explains basically like what Collie did to her, and then how she survived. That's what I got most of it from. But I believe she did reference Derek's exact actions
she
of
did.
giving the sacrifice of the virgin to the tree.
Yeah, and she talked about the omen with the mistletoe, which was really interesting story to find out why people kiss under the mistletoe. That whole story about the
Always
Norse
gotta use some
god.
knowledge in here.
Yeah,
Always some new
Jeff
facts.
Jeff
Should have
Facts.
a running list.
No, that was really cool though. How the Norse god wanted to protect her son, so she took an omen to fire, stone, all these different things, and then they tested it to see if any of these things would kill him. But the god of mischief.
Mischief, yeah.
Yeah, Loki, he actually the mother overlooked mistletoe, and so he constructed this dart of mistletoe, and it killed her son. And so she said anyone who ever passed under it, she would give a kiss to. So that was nice.
I'm so interested to see, like, how this gets further, like, explored within the show. I feel like this story, like, although it's all the background of the mistletoe we've gotten in episode after episode, I think that story about like the mom and the son is going to be more telling, and it's going to play a bigger role, and we're going to see some parallels.
Well, you just gave me an idea. So I mean, I don't know. I see. This is, hindsight is 20/20. But when she's telling that story, I feel like is it Harry Potter where they do the Legend of the Wand? And you do the whole shadow play thing. It would have been so cool if we'd been able to graphically find a way to tell that story while she's telling that story in the elevator. Sort of introduce some other flashback or element of like mythology, visually. It would have been a lot of fun.
Hey, you were in charge of that. Where's the...
What was I doing? I was worried about the silver in the elevator.
Derek's
I don't
loft.
know what's going on.
So what do you guys think about maybe if they just get rid of the Nemeton, that they can get rid of Jennifer? I know in stories back they said if you touch the Nemeton, then like horrible things would happen to the town. But it seems like all her power is coming from this Nemeton.
Well, it seems like the
is the
Nemeton
tree.
was already chopped because it's like a stump on top. So maybe this is the problem that the town's been facing all the time.
Good point.
What did you say?
Well, it's like they show a stump of a tree on top, and like she referenced how in the past episodes we've heard that touching the Nemeton creates like misfortune. So the fact that this tree has been chopped down is obviously touching it.
Is it true? Has it been chopped down? I guess I didn't notice that part.
I don't know if it was explained in.
I don't know if we saw the stump above the ground. Are you sure we saw the stump?
Oh, we saw
I
a
saw the
stump. Yeah.
stump.
Yeah,
Oh,
we saw.
okay.
Yeah, we see the stump, but
Because we see her crawling towards a stump.
Yeah, yeah. As far as the explanation, no, I don't think it's.
So maybe that's
why.
why this
Yeah.
town has been experienced so many things,
Good.
so many bad
I
things.
don't know how much I can say, but she's really good. All I would just say is this. Sometimes you pay for cutting down a really great tree.
That's a good point.
It's true. I'm from Thousand Oaks, and you get in really big trouble if you cut down an oak tree. This is a real fact.
So maybe we need to get rid of the rest of the route, and
The
that would
rest
help
of the
things.
town.
And do you think Derek will remember where this root cellar is? Because everyone's like, "Where's Stiles' dad? Where's Scott's
If he doesn't,
mom?"
Peter does.
Yeah.
Because Peter was there too.
And Argent has that map of everything.
But
They
how
can-
soon are they going to come up with the discovery that they're there? That's my question.
Yeah.
It's like they need to piece together this puzzle. And obviously, Argent's been pretty on top of the game, so I'm waiting for him to share his knowledge. We finally get them running into each other at the scene tonight, or last night. So that was, I think, good steps forward to everyone teaming up. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's getting pushed together again, which I always like.
Well, speaking of discovery and knowledge, how interesting is it in the hospital scene that Peter finds out that Scott is a true alpha? That whole reveal to the group.
I mean, that was the Dark Druid that actually revealed that to them,
Absolutely.
of course. And Derek seemed kind of shocked and taken back. But Peter was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. It's always made sense."
Yeah, because Peter made him.
Yeah.
Why did Peter make him? Is that random or is that a choice?
Yeah.
Or is that, you know?
But
I
Scott
don't
tries to
know. To me-
underplay it a little bit, which I kind of like.
He's like, "It doesn't matter though."
But that was that conversation. I knew it had to happen eventually. Everyone had to find out eventually that he was a true alpha, like get in the loop with the Callion or whatever. But that conversation was just scary to me. It just felt foreboding and awful, and like I feel like Derek's gonna end up feeling challenged, and they could either take it in league with each other and be like, okay, we're both fighting against Callion because he wants us both, or I think kind of Derek might turn against him even more because it just didn't feel like a happy conversation.
Yeah. I want to thank Persalia for giving us the whole Jennifer conversation. And guys at home, if you have anything to add, just comment, rate, and download on our shows, and I'll mention some more of your comments as we go through. We have basically two villains this season, and BX Girls HS on YouTube says, "To me, this show is amazing because the villains are so layered. They are reasons why the bad guys are so bad. And you almost feel for them instead of having a person be evil just for the sake of being bad." Who do you guys think is the bigger evil? Or, like, who should we trust? Should we be with the Alpha Pack and Deucalion? Or should we try to team up with the Dark Druid?
I mean, that's such a hard question because part of me wants Jennifer, Julie, whatever her name is, to like step up.
Rock.
Yeah, Duroc.
Let those throw us
I
some
want
more
her to
names.
like step up, and although she's a dark druid, like I want her to support Derek and them. And if she does that and she follows through and helps them, unlike she really did this episode, then I would be on her side. But when I look at histories, I can understand where Deucalion's badness comes from. But I think that he represents, like, he even says in this episode, like, she's like, "Oh, you're like the, who is it that says it? Ooh, Scott's mom." Turns up and she's like,
Who's the-
"Oh,
you're the bad
you're the bad
guy."
guy." And he's like, "You don't even know." And I'm like, is that you don't know the whole story, or you don't realize how bad I am?
You have no idea, is what he says. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No idea how bad I am.
Yeah.
So,
Those two are my favorite. Those two exchanges and the whole rooftop set that we sort of like, the whole raining thing, and they're really interesting together. I thought that was a really interesting combo. Those two actors, great.
and also, I think you can add Peter into the bad guy list. I mean,
Hey, he helped out this episode with a little
his
adrenaline rush.
Let's rumble. That was one. That
He
was
was
one
so
of my favorite ones.
helpful.
was he helpful? Was that really?
So Jennifer's doing all this to stop the alphas, and to this point, we have not seen the demon wolf. Like, we actually do not know if he's worse than the Drock, actually. So we don't know what we're dealing with, who to side with at this point. And I feel like we got to learn that during the lunar eclipse, they lose all of their powers as wolves. So do you think when Derek was like, you can't beat them, she brought up the lunar eclipse thing. So do you think she's going to try to, kill everyone during the lunar eclipse when they don't have any power? Because that would make the most sense to me.
I think her plan is to attack them during that time. Like, she made that pretty clear. But things never go according to plan. And so I was kind of trying to think of something, like, if they're all out of power and they're forced, they pose it as they're going to be forced to rely on Julie Jennifer to rock. I don't think that's true. But if you
Hashtag
look,
Julia Jennifer. Put it up there, Twitter.
if you look at the evidence of the episode and like who really posed the most help, it wasn't just the werewolves. It was the Argents who came in last minute, and they're not going to be affected. It was Scott's mom when she electrocuted the twins.
Super mom.
And like in the past, we've seen Lydia help. I mean, Stiles is there with a bat that does a whole ton of good.
That helps.
But I mean, so I think we're like seeing that it is her plan to act during this time of their weakness. But I think that we also have to realize that all the power and all the saving hasn't just been in the hands of the werewolves. It's also been in the hands of the humans. And so I think that they can come in and
Team
help
Human.
save the day.
That would be awesome if Team Human would step in during the lunar eclipse and actually take
And
out the Drock. And do you think Scott, since he's the true alpha, will, like, maybe it won't affect him? Who knows? Because we've never seen a true alpha, so maybe is the only werewolf that would have power during the lunar eclipse. And I want to know, if Deucalion dies, like, what will Jennifer's agenda be? Will she join Scott's pack and continue into the
Now they'll
next
go on
set of
picnics together.
episodes? Yeah, will her and Derek live happily ever after? Like,
We need to find more out about her, like, in real intentions here.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it could easily be swayed. Like, once you have an anger against someone that's that big, that's driving you to kill, I think you can easily be like, well, these people are just going to turn into the new alpha, so now I have to kill them, too. It just doesn't end well.
it looks like Mr. Argent will be the last of the parent/guardians to be taken. It just kind of seemed that way in the, like, next on, so I think they're going to be worried about looking for him. But CMADel96 on YouTube said Derek might be one of the sacrifices. I mean, he is a guardian, right? He cares for his sister. So I don't think that Jennifer's ready to sacrifice Derek.
I think she would have taken him out of the elevator if that was
Exactly.
true. But I could.
Have they really taken out a werewolf as a sacrifice, though? None of the
They've
people.
not.
It's all been humans, right?
All been humans.
Uh-huh.
I mean, but think about it. If she takes Mr. Argent, she has him and Selinsky and Scott's mom. That's a lot of brain power. So I feel like if they all got kidnapped, like, they could kind of almost get themselves free. Because they've got skills,
Right.
if you combine them.
Yeah, for sure. And Lou Nada said on YouTube, I wonder what a Duroc werewolf baby would look like.
Oh, cool.
She wants Derek and
Kinda
Jennifer
scary
I'm
looking.
getting
together.
No.
horrible images in my mind.
And why is the Drock so ugly?
That would be.
She's been dead.
I was a little bit confused about that too. Because we saw that Kali had done that to her face, but like, why is she having these two things? Is like that the side of her that would have kept on like dying, and this is like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Or perhaps
Why
she
is
is the poison of, like, perpetually senseless sacrifice. Maybe sacrifice isn't for the greater good. Maybe it's just moronic,
Well, like-
giving up a life.
Yeah, Jackson kind of took on the Kenema last year, because when you take innocent life, you kind of become, what that looks like. But Pizzazz Girl says Jennifer is going to feel it was a mistake to fall in love, because it will get in her way of what she's doing. So let love blossom, and hopefully, like Jackson, she can be someone beautiful again. # fairy tales. So
Jackson was beautiful again? How did I miss that?
I guess
When did
after
Jackson come?
Lydia kissed him, he turned back to a werewolf, and he wasn't the Kenema anymore. So maybe she just needs a couple more, hugs from Derek. I don't know.
something, right?
Yeah, we'll find out. But so, yeah, the parent guardians, everyone knows not to mess with a mammal, and don't mess with Scott's mom because she will shock you, and she is like a professional lifesaver, and she just steps up. Like, she's really super mom.
There were some great moments for Team Human, and that was one of them. And then Stiles, I just have to mention, Stiles had a lot of great moments. He had the baseball bat, which was not very helpful, but at least he tried. And then the moment where he revived Kora. That was a really great moment.
Strange version
great
of
scene.
CPR.
that scene.
Never seen that CPR
Like, don't
done
you
that
need
way.
the
Yeah, he was
pounding
not
part?
pushing on her chest.
I sort of feel like there's a Stiles Cora thing going on there
I
too.
thought
You know,
that
that's
too.
Delora?
that's the-
Yeah.
I thought some foreshadowing there.
Don't know.
Stora. Maddie
Stora.
Medina said, "Am I the only one who thinks Cora and Stiles would be a cute couple?" I don't know.
Obviously, when she's not awake, they're great.
Exactly. He has great
Great
That's hilarious.
conversations with her.
They
I feel like a
listen-
lot
she
of
listens.
relationships would work out that way. Already Claims says that their theory for why Cora isn't healing is it's kind of like how Scott wasn't healing, and because it was an alpha attack, so it takes longer to heal. And also because maybe it's like a mental thing that
Well,
she's
and
going
in this
through.
episode, we learned that it's a huge part of it's due to Mistletoe. Mm-hmm.
But they got it out of Keahu Danny.
I think she was just trying to get Stiles to kiss her.
I think that was the plan all
She
along.
was faking it, guys. Come on.
I mean, yeah, we haven't discovered like how extracting it from werewolves is maybe different than maybe humans. I don't think
Yeah.
that's been really
Good
delved
point.
into
We haven't
quite
gotten
yet.
in all the way into that discussion yet. But we're learning more. And now she, too, is vomiting up black blood, similar to another person we know.
And in the next dawn, Derek said that he can save Cora, but he won't be an alpha anymore.
Yeah, we did hear that. And, like, my question is also, did he get that knowledge? Did he get that knowledge from Miss J? Is that how he knows that?
Yeah, that's a
And
good point.
Mike, like, the reason I brought up the similarities
Now
between
she's just
Cora
J?
and Gerard, I don't know what to call her.
Jay, Gerard, Jennifer, Julia.
I don't know.
Sarah doesn't know the name.
It just gets confusing, Miss Blake, Jennifer. Anyway, Miss J. Like, if she knows how to save Cora, I'm assuming she kind of knows how to save Gerard. Because to me, they seem to be kind of ailing
point.
from the same sickness. So if we do see Cora, then someone's going to have the knowledge on how to fix Gerard, which I
point.
think could be interesting.
We got
I don't
to
want
see
them to save Gerard, though. I'm totally good with him being in pain. No, I'm fine. He can stay in the suffer zone. I don't mind.
The trees were enormous.
we got to see the Arjun's father-daughter team up, and a little bit of the Allison-Isaac relationship. But he describes Kali as like the hot one in front of Allison, which I don't know if you would say in front of
Didn't he
a
also
love interest.
didn't he also refer to Miss J as the hot one in this episode?
Yeah.
He just thinks everyone's attractive.
Who said this?
Isaac.
Isaac said Jennifer was hot.
Yeah. I think he just finds everyone attractive.
Good point. And
He's searching for love.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's,
He's
the
reaching.
boy. He's the boy.
He's just
a
throwing
good boy.
nets out there, and whatever comes in.
He needs to find someone who's
I know
like,
a lot of
not
guys like
taken.
that. So the twins don't really want to hurt Scott. They're already leaning towards Scott's side. I mean, they're just like helping to find and kill the Drock. They're not trying to mess with
They
Scott.
seem
so
to be like knocking heads though. Like we've constantly like the tension between the twins has been growing in the past couple of episodes. First between their romantic relationships, protecting the people they like, all that's been escalating. And
Yeah.
I'm like wondering if there's a purpose to that. Like, is there a reason they're fighting so much? Like, we know that they have physically they like share each other's pain more or less, but mentally they're operating on two totally like different levels. So like, what's going to happen? Like, I don't think they can pick sides.
yeah, I mean, maybe they
like-
won't be merging anymore.
I would say look to Gemini. This is just my gut feeling.
Yeah.
Isn't Gemini the twin?
Yes, I'm a Gemini.
Gemini?
And he's a Gemini.
Oh my God!
You're in the room
oh,
with three
geez.
Geminis.
I'm a Leo,
watch
so
out.
like, hey, you know.
Oh, Leos are my
guys get
favorite
my-
signs.
All right.
They are the coolest people, besides Gemini, of course. I'm just kidding.
President Obama.
Really? I didn't know that. Very cool.
Happy birthday!
Is it his birthday?
It was this past was Sunday, I think.
Oh, nice.
There we go.
So what's up with Scott joining Deucalion? He obviously has to have another plan, right? Or is this the beginning of our fallen hero?
He can't be a fallen hero yet.
Who's going to fall?
Scott, with his
He- 'cause
joining at
he's-
the last minute of this episode, he walks away with Kelly.
And he leaves Stiles in tears, as always.
I mean,
They cry a lot.
Stiles is awesome at crying.
They cry, yeah.
I always find this so interesting because I
Hashtag
feel
tears.
like in this
Feels.
like,
Sorry.
Feels, yeah. Scott Stiles feels. Here we go. Twitter. Go, get on it.
Scott and Stiles are really feeling for the parents here. But it's always so interesting too, when you really think about it, you know that both their parents would probably sacrifice themselves
Good point.
for the good of their children. So, and especially like with the great parents that they have in the show. So I'm kind of like, Scott, why are you really going with him? You're like, your mother would not want you to do that. She would say no. Like, she would say, find some other way. So stop. And so I like want to like yell at him as he's like walking across the roof. I'm like, what are you doing? And like Stiles, you can see this, like him understanding like that, like as much as he was kind of fighting it, you could also see him kind of supporting his decision.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was being, for how outlandish that boy talks and like how much he's willing to state his opinion all over the place, like the fact that he was silent to me was like a layer of support.
Well, you know, Stiles has been more quiet, seems to me, in this season. Stiles is like definitely, you know, one thing I've also tried to do with Stiles in terms of set decorating is like make him more of a detective. You know, he seems to really want to be his father, and we wanted to make him obsessive about that way and sort of try and introduce that into his, you know, environment. And he seems to be growing up. I think that's what you're sort of seeing with all of them, which is really exciting, you know, as you're seeing them mature.
No, I agree, and I definitely feel like he has been different this season in that he kind of just feels helpless. He was reflecting on what Cora said, which made him feel even worse, and he's always being left with just having to deal with Scott's decisions at this point and not being able to help. So I definitely feel like a change is on the verge. We get that next dawn of his eyes looking a little wolf-like. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. I mean, maybe, you know, Peter's offered him the bite before. Maybe he'd take it this time because he just wants to help. And it seems like he's always the one that's trying the hardest to help but cannot due to his human limitations. But so Deucalion offered to help Scott if he helps him find the Drock, and he'll save his mom. Basically, if he joins his pack. And against Stiles' wishes, he follows Deucalion. And I was like thinking Deucalion was gonna pull the Scott, I am your father card. Like like the whole like Star Wars.
That would have been crazy.
That would have been awesome, right?
It'll be interesting to like
crazy.
see them like try and have a relationship next week. Like I just can't picture them in a pack together. I feel like it's just gonna be like awkward silence.
Just need to go to a bar sometime.
It's kind of like Magneto, though, too.
Oh, right. That wouldn't be good. Yeah.
Magneto's like the good guy, bad guy, or like the bad guy with a reason or something. That seems what Deucalion sort of is to me. You know, it's like a justified anger.
But still they're crazy and try to destroy the world.
No, that's only Jay.
Yeah, because Stiles asks if there's a plan B, because there's always a plan B, and Scott, you know, definitely sees like, no, there isn't a plan B. In this case, since Deucalion's presenting this argument, like you can only find, you know, your mother and Stiles' father through me, and Scott's like, well, okay, I haven't listened to him up to this point, and he seems to know a lot, and he could have told me a lot of things, so maybe I'll just go along with this.
Also, it could be instinct. I would just say you go with your gut, and that's sort of what he's sort of doing.
Yeah,
I agree.
I was kind of joking with the Star Wars Luke, I am your father kind of reference, but do you think Deucalion could be Scott's father?
No.
Just throwing it out there.
I don't want to think about
There's been a lot of Star Wars-ish moments in Teen Wolf. And we've never seen Scott's father mentioned. And Deucalion does have a little, like, soft spot for Scott, as Kali points out.
But wouldn't, like, Melissa know?
Yeah, you think she would have recognized him, but that was a
all
long
the
time ago. He had sunglasses on.
Good. Yeah.
Incognito.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
You never know. But the irony, I also wanted to go back really quick to Stiles' dad was the one who found Jennifer at the Nemeton, like almost dead. And now she has captured him and wants to sacrifice him. Like, does she not remember?
No, she just doesn't think of she's not very considerate in her sacrifice selection.
That would make me not trust the greater good. That's just, I'm saying.
That's a good point. Well, before we get into the interview with Rusty, I just want to thank a few more people on YouTube and read some of the comments that you guys left. You can always join the conversation at 424-256-1729. You can tweet at me, Cinematic Escape, and I'll read some comments off there. And we had 820 Monster really loving Haley Webb last week and saying she's smart and funny and talented, and not to mention she's unbelievably attractive, and they thought she was so funny, and that they can't wait to see how the relationship evolves with Derek. Angelina also wondering that too. And Jordan Jax and Maddie was asking what song at the end we were playing, and that was Solar Solar, I Can't Find You. And Angus Hale says, normally I stay away from other people's opinions about shows, but she finally watched AfterBuzz, and she said it was such a smart dissection of the after show, of the episode that we did through the after show, and now she doesn't want them to kill the Duroc because she really loved Haley. So that was... Thank you guys all for your comments.
Great,
and then WRT said that we were ignoring the Steric and Skyzik relationships. And we did get that Skyzik moment when Isaac was in the car, Scott and Isaac moment. And Isaac said, I'm going to leave without Scott. So we still got that love that the fans have created between Scott and Isaac. And the Steric moment between Stiles and Derek was early on in the episode where Derek was kind of telling Stiles to hush, and then Stiles was like, you're the one who has dated like 2 mass murdering girlfriends. So that was kind of the only exchanges we got. So there you go, guys. We always want to talk about what you want us to talk about, so just leave comments, rate, and download, and we will definitely get to them. And thank you, Joe Coolio, D-Body, Jeremy Kennedy, Beehive ID, Wolf's Wind, Tina Red, So You Sailed Away, The Eighth Potter, CC, Mr. AWAX, and CT from London, Brandon, Natty Willie, and Cinecath, all on iTunes and Twitter. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.
Those were
Thank
awesome.
you.
And now we're going to get into the exclusive interview with Rusty.
Hello.
Hi.
Your turn.
What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Speaking, I mean, that's from Elf, and of course you did the production design for Elf.
Oh, does he say that in blue?
He does.
Oh,
he says, hello, this is Buddy the Elf. What's your favorite color? So anyway.
My daughter says when she answers the phone.
And now you know where that's from. It's actually a movie that you did the production design for. But so the first question I always ask everyone is I'm always interested in how aspects of our childhood lead us into specific careers. What from your childhood would you say contributed to you choosing to be a production designer?
Probably my mother. My mother was, very theatrical in a way, and I think she probably would have wanted to be an actor if she could have, perhaps dreamed her way out of it. But she taught me to draw. I loved comic books too. I had my own Superman cape and, wanted to, do that and be that. And I don't really know sort of how that happened. As I grew up, I thought I wanted to, move to New York and draw Spider-Man for the rest of my life. But I somehow, either because of her influence or because of that, and totally by accident, I took a drama class in high school and got bitten by the theater bug. And then when I was 16, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
Wow.
So
did you
somehow.
ever think of any other career other than acting or production design? Was there anything else that you ever dabbled in?
No.
No.
Not really. No.
Ian said he wanted to be a rock star and a baseball player, so.
I did want to do restaurants for a while. I wanted to design restaurants. And it was a huge money pit and a disaster.
Oh.
But,
So don't do that, guys.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Some people seem to be very successful at it. I don't know how they possibly can do that. But.
Can you talk a little bit about your production design process and how is it from, the moment they give you the script to then the end production? What's that kind of process like?
Well, it does. It usually, it always starts with an idea or the word and the script. And, usually I was talking to somebody in the van about this today. I'm a very slow read. And I think it's because I sort of see it all or feel it all. And I can't just my son can blow through a script in like 15 minutes. And I'm like, how did you possibly do that? I sort of feel it. And so... in the process of feeling it, images, come to your head. If you feel some sort of inherent sort of connection with the material, and once that happens, then you also have to go get the job. There's also sort of the sort of ugly, realistic, part of it is that you have to sort of sell yourself to get that, especially if you sort of feel really strongly about it. And the most disappointing thing, it's much worse for being an actor because rejection becomes just a part of your practical existence. But a lot of times that doesn't happen. And when that doesn't happen, and what you then find out is that then you have to take that and you have to deal with other people. It's a collaborative sort of machine and family. Usually I always look to the director. There has to be a lead. I started in the theater, and Robin Wagner, who was a designer of, Dream Girls and Chorus Line, it was a person I worked with years ago, and he said to me once, the director, and it was all about somebody has to lead the sort of idea team, and so taking whoever that person is, they will give some sort of guidance, invariably in terms of like tone or effect or research, and you sort of take that combined with your interpretation of the material, and then you have to start to formulate some sort of plan, a plan towards execution. And then there's the logistics, then there's budget, then there's producers, then there's all these other things that will come and try. Some people jokingly, we joke, we call them dream killers. Those are the people who are trying to kill the dream that you are trying to create.
I want the $12 million tree.
Exactly.
The live one that grows.
It's in your imagination, though. You already saw it. You see, that's what's very exciting to me about the whole stump cutoff. You already saw the tree in your head, and that's really cool.
I have a question. I mean, not unless are you done with your explanation? Because you felt like I just cut you off.
No, please, let's go ahead.
Okay, I want to know what your favorite execution of your visual has come through on Teen Wolf. Is there a specific set or scene or something where you're just like, that is exactly what I pictured in my head and has become your favorite? Also, I want to know if there's any specific movies where you have any favorite designs you've done.
Oh, definitely favorite movie, but first on Teen Wolf, it would have to be The Loft. When I started this, because and I got to do this little MTV walkthrough of it.
I watched it.
Derek seemed to, every. I love Bond films also. I grew up on sort of doing that, and the Austin Powers is as close as I've gotten so far, to getting to do something like that. But the bad guy gets a lair, Somehow there has to be in the Act 1, Act 2, 3 structure, Act 2 is kind of a cool lair that you get, then Act 3 is really cool. And the Loft was supposed to be this sort of destination spot, and I always wanted to, living in New York, it was my big dream to get a loft and be one of those crazy artists and get to do that. And so to get to create that, what was that? And then in terms of my process, then the directors, Russell Mulcahy and Tim Andrew, they came in to it because they're going to have to direct in that environment many different things that we didn't know what they were going to be. So you want to provide a playground, where, things can evolve, and, Tim came in with a piece of research with a broken out brick wall, and then Russell said we have to have a balcony and do a big, digital shot, and where we explain. And Russell actually found the building, when we were scouting downtown, and that's also one of the other, more exciting things about what I get to do is process. we knew we were going to be looking for a loft. Then where was the loft? And then we thought, well, it's somewhere in Beacon Hills, downtown LA now. And we saw this amazing sort of sweatshop alley back part of a building, and it went straight up and it had these ductworks. It looked like Brazil. I don't know if you know the movie Brazil, and going in and out of the windows, and it was all dirty and board form concrete.
And
it was
perfect. I want to live there.
Exactly.
Building.
But then Russell said, "Oh, and you could put the top floor on, and that would be the loft." And I was like, "Oh!" And then I saw it, and so sort of from that moment on, it was a big deal getting that thing made, and it showed up very early on in the season, and we couldn't possibly execute it by that time. So then it became about a matter of juggling schedule, because everybody sort of saw the dream, and then you do a sketch, and then you make a model, and they're like, "Oh, we want that." Well, you can't have that by here. So everybody sort of worked together as a team to try and achieve it. And, still, I like to say there are no bad angles in Rusty's world. And that thing, I hope, you can just keep shooting it, and it'll just keep growing. We're still trying to think of different ways to shoot it. Through the skylight, we might get to go. We designed it so there would be places where it could grow. Like you don't know what's through that door or what's up the spiral staircase. And so
options.
Options. That's right.
Options are
We
always
only
good.
have about like 2 minutes left in the show, but I wanted to ask you what one of your best memories was on set of Teen Wolf.
My best memories on set of Teen Wolf.
There's just so many, right?
There are a lot. I have to say, this has been, for me artistically, one of the most positive, reinforcing experiences I've had in years.
And we have to thank his kids for that, because I heard he told me earlier that his kids were the ones who pressured him. Like,
Yeah, I interviewed for this job, and my kids are like, "Dad, you have to take that job. You have to do that." And I said, "Have you ever seen the show?" And they're like, "No, but we're, all our friends watch it, and we're going to watch it now." So, and so then it created 2 more fans,
Yeah.
And it is true, amongst a certain sort of age group, you can sort of say. Even my decorator, she had some friends, and she brought them to set from Dallas, and she told me that they were supposed to, go to Vegas, and the next day she found out at brunch that she was working on Teen Wolf, and they were like, apoplectic. The girl was so she got to come and Scott and Stiles and have her picture taken. They postponed their trip,
wow.
But I don't know what I would say is my favorite moment. There have been so many. I would just say about one thing is sort of a button on this episode, this hospital episode. We got the script very late. And Russell Mulcahy has been like a continual inspiration to me as a director. And he was trying to figure out how he was going to shoot the entire episode in the hospital, and it became about the lighting. And about how it was emergency lighting and a flashing thing, and he sort of started to talk to me about it, and I've got all this other stuff going on. I'm like, yeah, but the lighting. And then he says, I'm going to go buy it. And so he goes and he starts buying emergency lights, and he brings them into the office, and he's setting them up all over the floor. And I saw him at the end of the room, and I thought, oh my God, I have to pay attention now. Because we start shooting this in 3 days, and that is what it's going to be all about. And so you have to be willing to, be open to ideas, and also intuitive. You have to say, and he was being incredibly intuitive, and so I had to follow that lead and embrace it. And, that part of the process is incredibly invigorating.
I can just picture him with all of his lights all over the floor. It's just wonderful. Like, I can picture him like a kid, just like.
Well, thank you so much, Rusty, for coming on and giving us all this inside information. We're gonna have to wrap up, but a quick prediction for next week. I think we saw like a Lydia and Stiles kiss next episode. And I think maybe Stiles might, choose to become a wolf to save his dad. So we'll see about that. I'm Kristen Snyder. You can find me at Cinematic Escape on Twitter, or you can bing my blog, Cinematic Escape. Sarah, do you have any predictions before we go around the table?
I mean, I really just think that, well, I feel like there's foreshadowing going on. I think we're going to see some more twin confrontation. I think that eventually we might even see them split sides, and I'm wondering how Derek's going to realize that they are at the Nemeton. But I think it's going to be him that's going to figure it out.
Good call. And Sarah, you're not on Twitter, but you can find Sarah on different shows at AfterBuzz.
I am here next Sunday for True Blood.
And where can we find you, Corey?
You can find me on Corey Trench on Twitter, and then also my band Articles at facebook.com, Articles Rock and Roll. And you actually can see us at the House of Blues in the Voodoo Lounge this Friday, 8:15 p.m. So be there.
And Rusty, are you on Twitter?
I'm trying to remember what my Twitter is.
Is your name involved in it?
I know, but I have a website, rustysmith.biz.
There you go, guys. Go to rustysmith.biz. And if you're wondering what the music in the show was and what this song is right now that we're playing, it's Snow Ghost and The World Was Gone. And that's it for this week, guys. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.